I want to see if we can try something. So analysis, I'm sorry. Analysis, critique, and commentary. Those three words, if one of us can take each of them and describe what we think the purpose of those words are, and then see if we kind of all agree to the same thing. But one of us take analysis, one of us take critique, and the other one take commentary.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, Geechee, but I'm struggling with the whole frame. So to go back, I said something critical of what I heard on Diallo's last show, but there's something, Diallo, you said on your last show that I did appreciate, and I don't think I've made enough of an argument around this myself. That in response to this idea of who is and who is not doing the work, Diallo put forth the idea that doing media and radio and what we're doing here is, in fact, doing work in service of radical organization, revolutionary thinking, consciousness, et cetera, and so forth, and should not be discredited and demeaned as nothing. Now, I've honestly always looked at, even when I thought my broadcasting was its most revolutionary, doing particularly when I was doing mixtapes and pirate radio, I thought I was like, I'm trying to be Robert Williams doing Radio Free Dixie. I'm trying to be, like I had in my head, like that's what I was envisioning. But at the same time, I was like, but at the same time, I was also very critical of it as not being a sufficient contribution to struggle and not, but Diallo, I think, makes a compelling point, and I think we should I should at least engage in some rethinking and maybe re-arguing in terms of how people engage us critically or myself critically in terms of this work. So, but my problem also with the frame is that in referencing Wise's approach, which he continues on Instagram as well, is that it's a blanket condemnation of unnamed criticism, unnamed critics, unnamed arguments, unnamed books, unnamed pundits, with this again feeding into what I think is an overblown sense an overblown sensibility in this moment of all intellectuals, all academics, all arguments, all critics, all YouTubers and podcasters are inherently flawed and incapable of being seen as contributing to some revolutionary struggle because they're not there, they're not here. But then my point though is that for him in particular is that the conclusions of his more apparently radical analysis are to sidle with Earn Your Leisure and those folks.
Yeah.
So if the argument is, on the one hand, there's too much criticism and too much book writing and too much YouTubery and too much, and then the solution is to work with them, then all that I'm hearing in that is what Jared and others are trying to do here is correct, and I can move back into comfort of. All that said, I think I'll just stop here. I think criticism is essential. I think I have, from even going back to when we used to, did the hate awards, and I'll even look to pull it up to get the quotes right. The principles are based in, for me, an appreciation of revolutionary criticism, accepting it, doling it out, et cetera, and so forth. So I'll just share this very quickly here.
And I also think this is beyond obviously what Wise said, but I think this is
not just Wise, but I think he's indicative of what he's doing. Yeah, what he's doing is indicative of a lot. So Sophia Bakari, you have to be willing to subject to the rapier knife of revolutionary criticism if you are serious about creating a revolution. Mm-hmm. And then George Jackson said, I dig people, righteous people. I've always found it hard to really hate anyone. I love people. I understood from the beginning that the end of the purpose of life was simply to love, experience, contribute, connect, to gratify the body and mind. I began to hate when I discovered that the mystification was interjected intentionally. So my point is, criticism is essential to both sharpening a revolutionary analysis and also to being willing to condemn the structures, intellectual and otherwise, that inhibit radical thought and that bring us away from, again, a critical and analytical approach to something mystical and something ultimately silly and useless. So that's what I've always, I had a little bit of fun personally. I try to have a little fun with it. And sometimes, maybe we get a little, I get a little bit, go a little bit too far, but that's in general the approach that I'm trying to bring, and why I think it's important to name people, name the criticism, and lay things out without name calling and hostility to get to the point, and then we can build from there. And I don't think we're in a high point of that movement today.
So Jared took criticism, sounds like. Diallo, analysis or commentary, what would be the purpose or your thought of one of those?
And first of all, whenever y'all disparage wise intelligent, I'm going to turn off my camera.
Oh, that's what happened just now?
I do not hold solidarity.
Oh, that's what happened.
This slander. Leave him alone. Leave Wise alone. After all he done did for us. Y'all just ingrateful.
Get to your answer.
Y'all are the ingratitude.
Did you wipe the Wise Gluteus Maximus off your lips? But go ahead. Analysis or commentary.
Pause.
Okay.
Give us the purpose or purpose or definition for one of those words, either commentary or analysis, and I'll do the last.
All right, I'm ready. I'm back. As long as y'all gonna stand on business, we can proceed.
Standing on business.
Are you standing on business? Because if not, camera goes off.
Anyway, wrong. Go ahead, man.
Let me tell y'all something. In terms of commentary, I have to tell y'all, and I can't stress this enough, revolution is an intellectual endeavor. A lot of times we confuse uprisings and rebellions or other acts of challenging or responding to oppression. We confuse that in and to itself with revolution. But revolution is a sustained, systematic, often multi-generational conspiracy. It is an intellectual endeavor. If you have an uprising, rebellion, acts of resistance that are not rooted in, and another thing I think we don't have, which is why I'll take commentary. Enduring something does not impart to you understanding of what you endured. Simply enduring something does not give you comprehension of what you endured. Being pregnant does not make you a gynecologist. Having cancer does not make you an oncologist. Now, you might have a thorough comprehension of how it feels to be afflicted with cancer. You may have a comprehension of the procedures that you are put through when you have cancer. But having an understanding of malignancy, metastases, and the biochemical processes of cancer, it does not impart to you. So simply being subjected to racism, oppression, misogyny, discrimination does not give you a comprehension of the systems, the institution, the history, the agendas, the hierarchies that are involved. When a cop hits you in the head, or a cop pulls you over, or your child goes to school and get called a nigger in their predominantly white school, that incident is tied to a decades of histories and generations of engagements and interaction. That is tied to systems and institutions and hierarchies. The incident that allowed the incident to happen and how the incident will play out. Now, enduring conditions does impart some insight and wisdom to people. I know that there are some brothers who have been in the criminal justice system since they were children, and they can explain the ins and outs of the criminal justice system, from arrest, indictment, prosecution, incarceration, how to navigate the prison system. But what they're doing is they are people who are educated. And there are people who endure that system and have a keen understanding of how to navigate it, how to avoid it, or how to get through it. And there are people who've been in and out of jail all their life, and each time it's chaotic and disruptive. So what intellectual work does, and this is so good just in reading The Community of Self, what this work, commentary, scholarship, articulation, debate, discourse, ideology, what that helps you do is to say, hey, when you endure something, it awakens something in you. If you endure racism and you're outraged, or you go to an African festival, or you engage with a brother or sister from the Caribbean and the continent, and you feel a connection that they tried to sever during our chattel enslavement, and then what you can start to use your intellect to say, hey, this thing that gave me rage, how do I assuage the rage? How do I keep the rage from killing me? How do I prevent the outrage or the offense that created the rage? And you build on that. Or like I said, you are a Black person born in the diaspora, you're in the United States, and you meet a brother or sister from the continent or Caribbean or Latin America, and you feel that connection. You still have to say, well, wow, I was hanging out with the Nigerians or the Bajans, and I was just vibing with these people, and I felt a connection that I've never felt all my life living in the West. And so then you have to still intellectually understand we are the same people, and those bonds can be utilized for greater power, not just feeling good or feeling like I've connected to my home, but using that as a source of power to subvert negative agendas against your community or your people, and to build up positive and affirming institutions and organizational structures. So without the commentary, without the engaging the mind and the intellect, these good or negative feelings have the potential to be harmful or good, but they can't be directed, they can't be controlled, they can't be guided. This revolution is an intellectual endeavor, and intellectual development and cultivation, ideological growth and cultivation requires discourse, debate, grappling with ideas, and grappling with divergence and disagreements within, alongside your brothers and sisters that you have unity with. And without that, what I see is people who encounter or endure oppression, you get tribalism, factionalism, demagogues emerge, cultism. These things happen when you have justified rage, when you endure something, but you refuse to do the intellectual work. All the rage, all the willingness, all the pride, Black pride, without that intellectual driver, without that intellectual foundation, generally hurts us or causes us to expend an enormous amount of energy without moving anywhere.
Okay. So I guess we can see if all three of these have some similarities, differences, or struggle around it. But so I would think analysis is a political framing, right? So you having a political line that speaks to explain or challenges structural, material, or cultural conditions for people. Some, I guess, call it dialectics, but breaking down a problem or a situation into parts, which will give us tools to have a more sober conclusion and to be in a better position to struggle to create solutions or struggle around solutions. So this is what I think the purpose of and the utility of analysis is. So when you hear those three uses or definition of critique, analysis, or commentary, would y'all agree or disagree with what was said in terms of those three things? And then how do they all connect? What are your thoughts?
I don't know.
I mean, I think you as you agree with Diallo in terms of it's not like any of the work that we're doing could exclude any of that, right? And not to say that one is more important than the other. Like, again, I don't think the the academic is more important than the organizer, and vice versa. They should be in perfect cohesion with each other. But I think sometimes what we do is we literally misrepresent, again, like you said, what doing the work is, and donate into something, throwing money at something.
Well, see, but that's again, that's become a problem.
Throw
for
that
me
money,
over-
y'all. Like,
well,
be careful.
yes,
Throw money at us.
Because again, whenever I hear vague discussions of what is or is not revolutionary or radical, or what is or is not doing the work, it becomes more and more frustrating to me. And it feels like more and more the default then becomes, in these vague, undefined or ill-defined moments, that anybody engaged in book writing or criticism or podcasting or intellectualism or academia is just not real. And is in that in and of itself defines them as less than or unreal. So I find it frustrating because in those moments, because, well, you're not explaining what is or is not real. You're not even explaining what specifically in the arguments that these academics or writers or pundits or whoever you're talking about, you're not laying out the specific flaws in their argument. You're not laying out the specific. It just becomes a vague blanket condemnation that seems ultimately to justify people's unprincipled or politically flawed decisions. But similarly, in certain activist spaces, what becomes defined as work easily, and this was something that I at one point experienced very much and felt a real problem with, it feels more like event planning as opposed to movement building, organization building. And I don't know, and again, I don't know how to distinguish or where it's appropriate to call out for a distinguishing of all of that. And then I'll stop here. Then it feels often like in this moment, all of this confusion and vagueness shows up in direct criticism of me or of us or of the platform, and I just don't find much of it helpful. So, but I don't know exactly how to deal with it.
So I mean, I also think there's no way to literally do work that's, again, outside of analysis or critique. So even people who do turkey giveaways, like, there's, in their mind, there's some utility that somebody else thought was a good idea. So maybe it was Nino Brown, like, you pumping them with poison, you might as well give them food. And if you give them food, they'll protect you when the police, like, it's still some type of critique or analysis that's done. It might be not yours. And so I feel like even the people engaged in this work, the work is based off of somebody's analysis and or critique of something that was already kind of going on prior to them. And a lot of times, if the question is, how do we get to that conclusion? And let's struggle around how we get to that conclusion. People are uncomfortable with having that conversation. Go ahead, Diallo.
I was just listening. I did have. I appreciate what you said of between event planning and building a movement. I really do appreciate that. But I agree with Jared's position and with both of you, which I'm very displeased to be in that position. So I'm just waiting to hear something I can tear down.
Well, maybe it's time to move to Killer Mike's.
Well, I did want to say that we had.
I think that's what you wait to do, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
He only can get ideas when
you can't give me the floor.
Talking.
I take the floor. Anyway, we were talking about starring comments, and if we should leave some time to review all the hateration in the comments or the star comments.
The end.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Wow, there's a lot of. Oh
Yeah,
wow,
I
there's a lot of
started my
starred
comments too.
Oh
Yeah, we
damn.
see them
so
like
we
they're,
gonna walk
very
that down.
demanding today.
I've
They're very
been
demanding.
kind of stepping out the chat a little. I've been in and out today, so
I've been
really.
eyeing it.
Forward.
I've been eyeing it, and it's still the same. Like everybody thinks the show should be tailored around how they think it should go and what they should do or whatever. So it'll be interesting.
You got to give the people what they want.
You got to every last one of them. Every individual.
EYL is for the children.